So I was playing football from the time I was 7 years old, but I also played at that high school, and we weren't very good, right? During my stint, we weren't, right? But prior to me, the school had some pretty good teams, but during my stint, we weren't very good. We had some very athletic guys. I just don't think at that time football was the most important, right? Because you had guys with real life situations, right? You had guys, mothers that were dealing with things, whether it was drug addiction, whatever the case may be, guys, fathers that weren't in the household in prison, guys' houses getting broken into. So it was real life issues. When we would come to the lunch table, whereas as most high schools, kids would come to the lunch table, they're talking about goals, dreams, aspirations. When we would come to the lunch table, we were talking about real life problems, right? We were talking about how such and such is going to eat, right? We were talking about how can he get some clothes on his back, right? What can we do for such and such? We was talking about our situation, and we were in high school. We were teenagers, right? Dealing with real life problems. And so football wasn't the most important thing, even though we played it. But to me, it was the most important thing because I felt like this could be the vehicle that I could help my family through. It was a vehicle of expression. And what I mean by that is I felt as if in my household, I had so much built up. I wouldn't say anger, but it was misplaced understanding, right? Because I'm coming from this household where I sleep on the floor, right? With roaches, with rats. I'm not ashamed to admit it, right? And I would go to school and I would compete. I would work. And so when I met a kid that I was competing against, the only thing I felt I had the advantage in my whole life was my work ethic. And I took pride in that, right? I was never the biggest, the fastest, the strongest, never had the most resources, but I had a work ethic. And so for me, when I got on the field, it was like I was free, right? I was free from my household, that 2-bedroom home with all the people. I was free from sleeping on the floor. Like this was the thing that my identity, and I could just be me. But also I could hit people, right? I could tackle people. I can inflict violence, not get in trouble for it. So it was a vehicle of expression that I felt as if I do this well, I can get my family in a better situation. If I do this well, I can get my mother off the double shift at Wendy's. If I do this well, I can get my own bed. If I do this well, I can get my grandmother a better living condition. If I do this well, maybe I can stop my uncles from selling drugs, right? And so for me, I viewed it that way, right? And I firmly believe perspective drives performance. And so my perspective about the game was different. And so therefore it drove my performance to be different. My situation was what it was at a very young age. And so my whole life, I wanted different for my family. Ever since I was a kid, right? And my coach took me across town to play ball. And when we would be riding home, we would be riding through these neighborhoods, right? And we would see people in their living condition, right? And he would be pointing out different houses and people, and just telling me about life. He was teaching me and molding me, right? And he was showing me that, hey man, like you don't have to live like that. And when that would be happening, every time I would go back into my community, I was there in the situation, but I was very much cognizant that it was a better life out there if I made the right decisions and right choices. And so it was almost like you come up in this situation of opposition and adversity that you're in. And then every single day you get to go out and you get to see a different life and you get to be free for a few hours. Then they bring you back into the opposition and adversity. So it's almost like you're taking a test, then they pull you out of the situation, they take you somewhere, they show you the answers to the test, then they put you back in a situation and they make you take the test again. And you know the answers, but the opposition and the adversity and the current of it is so strong that for most people, they forget the answers. And for me, I wanted to be laser focused and keep the answers so I can make the right decisions and choices so I can pass what I felt at the time was the ultimate test. So me and my wife, we work with homeless downtown Atlanta. And in my neighborhood, we see homeless people all the time. Like we had kids that went to school with us that used to sleep in abandoned houses, that teachers adopted. Like my mentor was my 8th grade math teacher, basketball coach. Like him and his wife adopted 3 kids from Atlanta public school system, right? Because he felt they didn't have anywhere good to go after school. And so you could very much see, if you go on one side of town in Atlanta You can see affluent. If you're on the other side of town, you can see people under bridges for whatever reason, right? And for me, when we do work with homeless now, it's a great teaching tool, because even at the shelters, you would think when you go to a shelter, the first time we went, we had a group of people with us. And I just wanted to hear their thoughts, right? And most of the circle was like, oh man, people are irresponsible. They're probably doing drugs, right? Probably made some bad choices. And when we got in there and you start talking to people and you meet a mother that says she's there because domestic violence, right? And this is the only place that she can go. They can't post pictures on Facebook and the guy can't find her. And she's there and it's a transitional program. She's working. She has an exit date for her and her daughter. You meet a man there, right, that lost his whole family in a house fire, right? And he's trying to get back on his feet, right? So it's different reasons. And you got some there that are irresponsible and that may have done drugs, whatever the case may be, right? But I look at it through the lens of who am I to judge, right? If I've been put in a situation to help and to serve, I'm gonna help as much as I can. I'm gonna serve as much as I can, because I feel like that's a part of who I am and that's my character. Because I've came from a situation to where I didn't know where my next meal was coming from. I came from a place to where I watched my mother scrape up change in dollars to get me a pair of cleats, right? To being in a situation to now I could buy my son, I could buy my daughter cleats and it's not a problem, right? I can even buy their teammates some cleats and it's not a problem. But my perspective about it is different, and I got a level of compassion that a lot of people can't understand. Like I firmly believe in life, it's a lot of moments and it's a lot of people that change and impact your life, right? Like I don't believe it's just one moment and you say, this one moment just changed my life. Even though that moment may have, but it's going to be another moment that's going to shape and change your life as well. Like my arm changed my life, my teacher changed my life. But to be more specific, when he met me in the 8th grade, the first day he told me my wife at the time, he said she's gonna be your wife one day. Scared the mess out of me. Like, man, this guy has lost his mind, right? But I'll never forget, he drove up in my neighborhood and I was on the corner with one of my uncles. And my uncles at the time, they were drug dealers, right? And I wasn't selling drugs, I was just hanging out. You hung out in the neighborhood on the street. And he pulled up in his truck and he was just like, what are you doing out here? Like, I'm chilling. He's like, no, you didn't hear me. What are you doing out here? I was like, I'm hanging out. He's like, get in the truck. And I got in his truck. He said, point me to your house. I pointed him to my grandmother's house. We pulled up, I get out, and he says to me, Ink, you're better than that. And I was like, I hear you. I was like, but the same corner you just picked me up from, Uncle wear a 2X t-shirt. I said, in the morning when I come to your class, I'm gonna be wearing a 2X t-shirt that he stood on the corner in and probably sold drugs in and did whatever all night, and I'm 135 pounds. So I hear you, right? But to me, those are just words, right? Basically saying to him, I'm coming from a real situation, right? So I hear you talking, but I'm coming from a real situation. And he was like, you think I'm playing? I'll be here in the morning to pick you up. And the next morning he picked me up and he said, here's the deal, man. He said, I'm gonna pick you up, I'm gonna play you in a game of one-on-one basketball every morning, and I'm gonna make you recite a proverb until you graduate high school. And I was like, he's just talking. And every single morning he did it. He picked me up, take me to school. He would play me in a game of one-on-one basketball, make me recite a proverb. And this is the moment I knew it was for real. The principal came into the gymnasium. And in Atlanta, and in school systems, most of them worldwide, public schools, you got this thing between the church and the state, right? To where they don't want you to bring church religion into the school system, which I get and I understand. And the principal came into the gymnasium and said to him, I heard you've been given Inky proverbs, which proverbs out of the Bible. And he said, yes, sir, I have. He said, stop it or I have to fire you. And at the time, my teacher was 23 years old, right? We were his first class of students, fresh out of college. And he looked at the principal and he said, well, you're just gonna have to fire me because his life is worth it, right? And I'll never forget in that moment saying, if he's willing to put the way that he provides for his family on the line for me, I gotta give him everything I got, right? And I never wanted to let him down.